I was sanding the porch rail when the phone buzzed in my pocket. Midday light, dry heat, the kind that sticks to the paint even after it dries. I almost didn't answer. The number looked familiar but not saved. "Hey, this is Tom," the voice said. "You're still at the old house, right?" "Yeah." "Well, I just wanted to ask if you're still planning to be out by the end of the month. The buyers want to do a walkthrough next week." He showed up the next morning before 8. I heard his truck before I saw him, the same rough idle it always had, like it never fully caught its breath. He didn't come up the steps right away. He stood by the mailbox, checking his phone, pretending to read something that wasn't there. When he finally walked up, I could tell he'd rehearsed. Hands in pockets, shoulders forward, chin slightly down, like he wanted to look reasonable. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you got my message." I did. He looked around, taking in the porch, the sanded rail, the coffee mug still sitting there from last night. "You've been working on the place." "Yeah. Looks good." I nodded. "Glad you like it, since it's yours now." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Come on, don't start." "I'm not starting," I said. "I'm asking." He looked past me into the house. "Can we talk inside?" We went into the kitchen. Morning light came through the curtain and fell across the table. He sat down without asking, like he still lived there. Maybe part of him thought he did. "I didn't mean for you to find out that way," he said. "It just moved faster than expected." "Moved faster? You sold Dad's house." He lifted his hands a little, palms up. "It's our house, Joe. Half mine. You've been sitting on it for 5 years. Taxes, insurance, leaks in the roof. I've been paying half of that and not living here." "You didn't pay half. You paid late every time." "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I can't keep throwing money into a place that's falling apart. You don't even live here, you just keep it like a museum." I let him finish. I'd heard the same words before, but this time there was something else behind them. Something he was hiding. "You already signed something," I said. He looked away. "That contract," I said. "You signed without me." His jaw moved once, a small clench. "The buyer needed a decision. They offered cash. If I didn't act, we'd lose it." "There is no we, if you sell what isn't only yours." He smiled then, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reached eyes. "You always need everything to be by the book, don't you? Books are what keep people honest." He stood up suddenly. "Honest? You think I'm not honest?" "I think you're desperate." That landed. He stared at me for a long moment. "I'm doing this for something real. I've got a shot at a business. A place out by the highway. I just need to clear my debts, get this deal done, and I can start clean." "And you thought selling the house behind my back would make that clean?" He shook his head. "You don't get it. You've got your steady job, your quiet routine. You sit here sanding rails and pretending that's life. I'm trying to build something. You're trying to erase something." He walked to the window and looked out. The street was empty except for a neighbor walking a dog. His reflection looked smaller against the glass. "I didn't forge anything," he said finally. "The paperwork's just simplified. You'll get your half when it closes." "That's not the issue." "Then what is?" "It's that you didn't tell me." He turned back. "Would it have changed anything?" "Yes." He exhaled, a hard, tired sound. "You always think you can fix things by waiting, but waiting doesn't fix debt." He grabbed his jacket from the chair. "It's done, Joe. Just accept it." I watched him leave. The truck engine coughed, then faded down the street. When the sound was gone, I looked at the contract again. The buyer's name was blanked out with a marker, as if someone had printed a second copy just for my eyes. That was the first real crack. That afternoon, I drove into town. I didn't have a plan, just questions. The post office, the hardware store, the diner, everyone still knew our family name. That's how small towns work. The walls keep memories longer than people do. At the hardware store, the owner nodded to me. "Heard you're selling the old place," he said. "Where'd you hear that?" "Your brother was in here yesterday." Bought sealant and said it was for touch-ups before the sale. Said it's going to someone from out of state. Did he mention who? He shrugged. Just said buyer's rep. Seemed excited. I thanked him and left. Out front, I sat in the truck and thought, out of state. Buyer's rep. Those were phrases he wouldn't have used himself. Someone had coached him. By the time I drove home, the sun was already low. The house looked different. Same boards, same windows, but it felt like someone had put a clock on it. I went to Dad's old desk in the back room. Bottom drawer, right side, where he kept the property papers. I opened it. Empty. I stood there for a while, staring at the dust outline where the folder used to sit. He'd taken it. The next morning I woke up before sunrise. Couldn't sleep. The light through the blinds drew lines across the ceiling like old cracks that had always been there but now looked deeper. I made coffee and sat at the table with a pen and a yellow pad. I wrote one line. If he used Dad's papers, find out when. That was the only way it made sense. The property couldn't be sold without both signatures unless there was another document. Something that gave him authority. And the only thing that fit was the old power of attorney Dad signed years ago when his health started slipping. I remembered the day. Dad was in the hospital. My brother had insisted we make it easy for small things. Repairs, tax forms, maintenance. Nothing about selling the house. Dad had signed because he didn't want to argue. I trusted both of them. I opened my folder again. The photocopies of that form weren't there either. He'd taken everything. By mid-morning, I was driving into town again. The air felt heavy, a storm waiting to happen. I parked near the Public Records building. A small place, 2 floors, brick fading to gray. Inside, it smelled like paper and old carpet. At the front desk, a woman in glasses looked up. "Can I help you?" "I need to see property filings," I said. "Recent ones. For the house on Birch Street." "Owner name?" "Reese," I said automatically. It was still strange saying it. Dad's name had always come first in those records. She typed for a minute, then frowned. "You're right. There's a pending transfer. Filed last week. Buyer not public yet." "Can I see the filing?" "Not the full packet, but the summary's public." She printed a page and slid it across the counter. I looked at it. The document ID, filing date, partial signatures. And there it was, a name in the corner. Power of attorney, filed 5 years prior. 5 years. That was the hospital year. The signature next to Dad's looked faint, scanned and reprinted. The witness line was blank. "Can I get a copy of the power of attorney?" I asked. She looked hesitant. "Normally, only the active agent or the grantor can request it." "I'm his son," I said quietly. "He's been gone 4 years." She studied me a second longer, then nodded. "Give me a minute." While she walked to the back, I looked out the window. Across the street, a man leaned against a pickup, scrolling his phone. Not my brother. But the truck looked familiar, the same model, same dent above the fender. The woman came back with a thin folder. "Here," she said. "Copies $5. I paid, thanked her and walked out fast. In the truck, I opened the file. The date matched the one I remembered 5 years ago, April. Dad's signature was real. My brother's too. But there was something new on the bottom corner. An addendum page, dated a year later, and signed by Dad, with a single line typed in. Authority extended to include sale of real property if deemed necessary for maintenance or debt resolution. The line looked like it had been printed with a different font. No witness initials. No stamp. He'd faked it clean, simple, lazy. I took a photo of the page with my phone. Then I took another of the filing ID. When I got home, I laid everything out on the table. The contract copy, the new filing, Dad's old mail, the note my brother had left years ago when we cleaned out the attic. He'd written then, "Don't throw away the papers. They're important." Now I knew why. I didn't call him. Not yet. I wanted to be sure before I put my hand on the lever. I called the county clerk's office instead and asked if an addendum filed separately would have a record. The man on the line said, "Every page gets logged. If there's no stamp, it's not official." I sent him the photo. He emailed back 15 minutes later. No record of that addendum. The only original power of attorney on file is the 2018 version, limited to repairs and maintenance. That was confirmation enough. That night, I drove to my brother's place. A small rental at the edge of town. His truck was there, lights off inside. I parked across the street and waited. I told myself I'd just talk. But I knew it wouldn't be simple. When he finally came out, it was past 10. He looked tired, maybe guilty, maybe just caught off guard. He froze when he saw me. "Jesus, Joe, what are you doing here? I needed to see you. This late." I saw the papers. His shoulders slumped. "I told you it's done." "No," I said. "What's done is forgery." He blinked. "What?" I held up the photo on my phone. "This addendum. It's not registered, not witnessed, not even Dad's typewriter. You did this." He stared at the screen, then looked away. "You're twisting it. It's your font, Matt. You printed it on your laptop. I've seen the same header on your invoices." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't understand what I was up against. The loan sharks." "Stop." I had to. They would have taken the truck, maybe worse. "So you took the house instead." His jaw tightened. "I was going to make it right. You'd get your half. You still can. Just let it close." I shook my head. "Dad didn't raise us for this." He laughed once, sharp, bitter. "Dad raised us broke." That silence after felt like something snapping inside the night. I left without another word. When I got home, I scanned everything. Photos, documents, messages. Labeled them by date. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about order, what Dad believed in. The house was quiet except for the wind pressing against the siding. I looked around at the walls we'd patched years ago. The paint we'd chosen too light. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was evidence. 3 days after the argument, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Closing scheduled Friday. Need both parties to sign by noon." No signature. No name. Just the tone of someone who assumes you'll obey. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed every page I had. The fake addendum. The real one from the clerk. The copy of Dad's signature. The neighbor's note. The nurse's note. I stacked them in order and slid them into a thin folder. It didn't look like a weapon, but it was. That morning, the wind came up from the south and carried dust through the street. The house creaked like it knew what was coming. I sat on the porch and waited. At 10, his truck turned the corner. He didn't park in the driveway this time. He parked at the curb, engine running. The passenger door opened and a woman stepped out. The buyer's representative. She was too calm, too professional for this small street. A tablet in one hand. A neutral smile that didn't belong to anyone real. "Mr. Reese," she said. I nodded. "We're finalizing the transfer today. We just need your signature on the updated settlement." "My brother tell you that?" She smiled again, a flicker. "He said you were on board." "Then he lied," I said. That smile thinned. "He mentioned there might be some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said. "Forgery." That stopped her. She looked at the house, then back at me, weighing what kind of trouble this was going to be. "I'm not law enforcement," she said finally. "Good," I said. "Because I am." That was a lie, but it landed. Her expression cracked just enough for me to slide the folder toward her. "You might want to read page 3, I said. "That's the page your office filed last week." She glanced down. The forged addendum was there, with the mismatched font and the missing witness line. I'd circled it in red ink. "Who prepared this?" she asked quietly. "Ask him," I said, and right on cue his truck door slammed. He walked up fast, voice already tight. "What's going on?" "She's reading your paperwork," I said. He froze halfway up the steps. "You had no right." "I had every right. It's my name too." He looked at her, then at me. "You're going to ruin this for both of us." "You already did." His voice rose. "You think you can stop a sale with a couple of notes? You think anyone cares about your little red circles?" I don't need them to care, I said. I just need them to see. He reached for the folder, but she stepped between us. I need to make a call, she said and walked back toward her car. He stood there, breathing hard, hands shaking. You don't know what you've done, he said. I do, I said. I stopped you from selling what isn't yours to fix what you broke. He turned like he might swing, then stopped himself. His face went red, then gray. They're going to come for me, he said under his breath. You don't understand who. Then tell me, I said. He didn't. He just got in the truck and drove off too fast, throwing gravel behind him. I stood there until the dust settled. Then I went inside and called the one number that mattered, the title clerk. File's frozen, she said. We got a notification from the buyer's rep. She's reporting irregular documentation. That's all I can tell you. That was enough. That night, I found an envelope pushed under my door. No address, no stamp. Inside was a single sheet. You made this worse. No signature. I took a photo of it and filed it with the rest. The next morning, I saw his truck parked across from the diner. He sat inside, staring at nothing. I went in, ordered coffee, and sat opposite him. He didn't look up for a long time. When he did, his eyes were bloodshot. They're freezing everything. The money, the deal. I'm dead. Not yet, I said. You could have let it go. No, I said, because this was never about the house. It was about the kind of man Dad raised us to be. He rubbed his face, tired and scared. You think being right helps me now? It helps you later, I said. If you face it now. He laughed bitterly. Later doesn't pay bills. No, I said, but it pays back what you owe inside your own name. That shut him up. We sat there a long time, two men in a diner that hadn't changed in 30 years. The hum of the fridge filling the air where forgiveness should have been. When I left, I knew it was over. Not the way stories end, but the way gears stop grinding when they finally strip down to the shaft. Everything that would happen next would happen on paper, and paper was my ground. I didn't sleep much after standing in his driveway. The night felt thinner, like the dark had been pulled tight over a frame that didn't quite fit. By morning, I had a plan that wasn't loud, just exact. First, paper. I wrote a one-page notice that the property was in dispute, that any authority to sell based on the old signature was limited to maintenance only, and that I had reason to believe a later add-on page was not real. I kept the words dry. I signed it. I scanned it. Then I walked it to the people handling the sale and slid it across the counter without making a speech. I left copies with the folks who stamp things, the ones who log parcels, the ones who file. No names here, just the rooms where ink matters. Second, witnesses. I called the nurse who'd been there the year the original paper was signed. She remembered Dad's soft joke about giving the boys a key, not the deed. She wrote a short note. I found the neighbor who drove Dad to appointments back then. He remembered dropping him home that day. There was no second visit a year later. He wrote a note too. 2 simple voices, 2 dates. Third, the page itself. I printed the suspect add-on at high contrast and circled the mismatched font, the margins, the absence of any mark in the witness line. I didn't accuse. I labeled. Different line weight. No stamp. Later printer driver. Facts sit straighter than anger. The trap wasn't a trick. It was sequence. When people who move papers see risk, they stop. All I had to do was show them where the ground was soft. 2 days later, my brother called. His voice tried to sound calm and landed somewhere behind it. You put a hold on the file. I told the truth on paper. You're going to cost me more than you can imagine. You already did. Silence stretched. Then he tried a new path. Come meet me, he said. 10 minutes. I'll bring something you want. I chose the place. The kitchen in the old house, not a parking lot. I set my phone on the counter and turned on the little recorder I keep for measurements and notes. It makes a soft click when it starts. He didn't notice. He came in looking smaller. He set a folder on the table and slid it to me like a deal in a cheap movie. Sign this, he said. You get half the proceeds wired, no questions. I'll take the heat on the paperwork. I opened the folder. A settlement. 3 pages. It said I had reviewed all documents and agreed that the sale was within rights granted years back. I closed it. I'm not signing a sentence that isn't true, I said. He stared at the window. You think you're better than me? No. I think I'm more afraid of Dad's face than yours. He swallowed that. Then he said the thing he kept hidden. The debt wasn't just late notices. It was a number with a man behind it who waited in quiet places. The truck wasn't the only collateral. He'd already promised a piece of the money he wasn't allowed to promise. You don't know what that's like, he said. I know exactly what it's like, I said. It's wanting to fix a trap with a bigger trap. It looks like movement and it's just quicksand. He flinched like the word hit something he recognized. I pushed the folder back to him. There's a way out that isn't this. He half laughed. What, your way? Lists and labels? Yes, I said. Lists and labels. And daylight. He shook his head and left without slamming the door. That told me he wasn't done. The next morning I got an email from the desk where files go to be blessed. Pending transaction paused. That was their whole sentence. It meant the gears had grit in them. It meant my page had landed where it needed to. I drove to the house. I walked the rooms Dad had painted too thin. I checked the basement for the slow leak under the utility sink. I found the jar of screws he used to sort by size and then ignore. I put the lid back on. Car stopped outside. My brother got out with a man I didn't know. Jacket too light for the weather. Shoes that had never seen a ladder. They came up the walk. We can talk, I said, opening the door before they knocked. We're just here to take a look, the stranger said. No card. No name. He didn't need one. His role was printed in the way he scanned corners. You can leave, I said to him. He smiled a thin line. You don't want this to get messy. It already is, I said. On paper. Paper is where it ends. He took half a step toward the door. I didn't move. My brother put a hand on his arm like he'd just touched a hot stove. We're going, he said. They did. That night I wrote one more page and dropped it, quietly, where it would be read. A simple request to copy the recording I'd made to the file in case anyone wondered. I attached a transcript with timestamps. There was nothing dramatic in it. 2 men talking. Folder. An ask that shouldn't have been asked. The pause stretched into a hold. People who had been moving quickly began to speak slowly. The buyer, which was just a word for someone I didn't need to picture, backed away. No one likes a parcel with a family anchored to it by a rope of notes and dates. My brother didn't call for a week. When he did, his voice was quiet. They froze everything. They did, I said. You did. We did. He didn't argue about pronouns. He asked to meet again without anyone else. I said the kitchen, same as before. He came in wearing the same jacket, only more tired. He looked around like the house might speak. I poured coffee for both of us and let the cup sit until the heat stopped fogging the air. I can't pay them, he said. Not now. I know. What happens now? You make a list, I said. Then we make calls you don't want to make. Not to men with windows in their doors. To the office where numbers get rewritten if you show your hands early. It's boring and it's slow and it makes you feel smaller than you are. But it makes numbers real. He laughed without sound. And the house? The house stays. He stared at the table. It was supposed to be my win. It can still be your work, I said. Those are different. He looked up at me like he didn't understand what I'd just given back. We made the calls. Not all that day. Not all went the way we wanted. But one stretched the due date. One folded a fee. One traded a threat for a plan if we put something down up front. I put something down. A small something. Enough to put a wedge in the door so it wouldn't shut. He signed papers with his real name, in full view of a desk lamp and a witness who said, "State your name," and waited for the whole thing. When it was done, there was no speech. He stood on the porch with his hands in his pockets and looked at the yard like it belonged to no one and everyone. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I'm not offering it, I said. I'm offering work. He nodded. What kind? The kind that keeps you busy when your head wants to run. The fence. The gutters. the crawl space, the checklist Dad never finished. He surprised me by saying yes, not because he wanted to, but because there was nothing else left that held still when he put his weight on it. The file at the counter didn't magically disappear. It had to be unwound in the same slow way it was wound. A notice of withdrawal. A notation that the add-on page was not relied on. A dull, correct letter stating the original authority remained narrow and had expired when Dad did. No headlines. No sirens. Just words with dates that closed a loop. Weeks later the house felt like itself again. He came by without knocking and pulled the soggy insulation from under the porch while I cut and stapled new vapor barrier. He measured wrong once and swore softly and measured again. I didn't correct him out loud. He corrected himself. We didn't talk about debt and paper much. When we did, we didn't rehearse. We said what action came next, like a to-do list you don't post on a wall because it's already in your hands. One evening, near dark, he stood by the maple out front and said, "You know, I almost moved my stuff in here after Dad died." "I know," I said. "I packed a bag and everything." "I know that too. What stopped me?" "You waited too long to ask," I said. "And you didn't want to be told no." He breathed out, a thin sound. Fair. He didn't say sorry that night. He didn't have to. He showed up the next morning with a coil of wire and a box of screws I didn't ask for. That's a kind of apology I understand. There's no clean ending where two brothers hug and the world gets a bow. What I got was the thing I wanted at the start. A line on paper that matched the day it described, and a door that didn't close because someone forged a hinge. When people ask me later how it worked out, I don't give them a parable. I tell them the parts. I put facts under the wheel instead of shouting at it. I didn't pretend the forgery was a storm. I treated it like a loose board and showed where the nails didn't match. I didn't set out to ruin my brother. I set out to remove the weapon from his hand and make him carry the weight he'd made. If you want a word for that, don't use revenge. Use restoration. It's less dramatic. It holds longer. A month after the hold turned into a withdrawal, I found a small envelope in the mailbox with no return address. Inside was a receipt for the first installment he'd paid on what he owed, stamped and time-marked. No note, just the slip. I left it on the kitchen table under the salt shaker where Dad used to pin lottery tickets he never checked. That night, when the house went quiet, I walked room to room and touched the frames like switches. I stopped in the hallway where the light always flickers once before it steadies. I listened to the relay click and thought about how often the right fix isn't a new panel. It's cleaning a contact and tightening the screw a quarter turn. In the morning, I wrote one last line at the top of a fresh page and put the pen down. The house stays. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Buyers. Yeah, your brother said the sale's moving ahead. I thought you knew. I looked at the rail under my hand. Fresh sawdust on my knuckles. No, I said slowly. I didn't know. Ah, the man said. I could hear papers shifting. He mentioned you two were joint owners. Guess he's handling most of the details. The call ended soon after. I stood there, still holding the sander. The motor hummed until it clicked off on its own. The house sat quiet behind me, the kind of quiet that comes after a long argument, even if no one said a word. The first time I heard the word joint, it was at the lawyer's table after our father's funeral. My brother sat across from me, eyes red, fingers tapping a folded paper. The house was split between us. He'd said, "It's fair." I believed him then. Now, 5 years later, fair was a word that felt like a tool someone had left out in the rain. I walked inside. The floors creaked the same way they did when Dad was alive. The kitchen light flickered once, then stayed steady. On the counter sat the stack of envelopes my brother had dropped off 2 weeks earlier. Bills, property tax. He'd said he'd take care of it. I hadn't looked close. I pulled one open. Not a bill. Contract draft. His name printed clean, mine missing. Underlined words jumped out. Offer accepted. Closing date. Signature pending. For a long time, I didn't move. I just listened to the sound of the ceiling fan ticking like a slow metronome. When I finally sat down, the wood chair made a soft groan. I picked up my coffee cup from this morning. Cold now, thin line of dust on the rim. My brother's been chasing a fresh start for as long as I can remember. New jobs, new ideas, none that lasted long. The last time we talked about money, he'd said he needed a loan, just to bridge things. I didn't have it. He didn't take it well. And now, apparently, he'd found his bridge. I called him, straight to voicemail. Then I texted, got a call about buyers. What's going on? No reply. Outside, a pickup slowed at the curb, then rolled on. A wind came up from the east, warm and dusty, and I thought about how Dad used to say, if a man lies to you once, watch what he does with his hands next. I went to the drawer by the fridge, pulled out the old folder with the property papers, the ones Dad had signed when he split the house between us. His handwriting slanted, thick ink, steady. He'd believed that if something was on paper, it would stay true. Maybe he never met the kind of truth that can be signed away quietly. That night, I sat on the porch again. The air smelled like dry paint and pine. Across the street, porch lights blinked on one by one. Ordinary life. The kind that doesn't stop when your brother sells the ground under you. When the phone finally buzzed again, it was him. Short message. We'll talk tomorrow. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I stared at the words until they blurred. Harder for who?